Here.
Mitch Daniels.
Here.
Brett DeRoche.
Here.
Scott Terrio.
Here.
Ryan Morris. McNeely Rome.
Here.
Monty Vegas.
Here.
Mr. President, we have four.
Okay, gentlemen, we presented the minutes of last month's meeting. Need a motion to accept, motion by Max, second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, all I have for us to remind you guys of the ALBL at the end of the month. Into December, right? Sorry. Mary put in your packets, paper we need and registration. Make sure you present that. And executive committee report next.
We're looking for the minutes. Are the minutes in your packets?
Yes. They were. They were mailed too, but they were. I thought I saw them in here. No?
That's the.
Was it November 6th? November 6th?
Yes.
It's in there.
You have it in there?
Yes, ma'am. It's after the almost the invoicing stuff and all, way in the end. And then you got the Lafourche, all their addresses and stuff.
I need to start credit.
It's after that one, no? I don't know. Maybe it was mailed to me and I put it in my pocket. That's probably what I did.
All right. Apologize, gentlemen. Okay. So the executive committee met on November 6th at 9 a.m. First thing we discussed was then Tropical Storm Raphael. Discussed the forecast track, which appeared to be shifting towards Mexico at the time. We discussed the status of pump number 2 at pump station number 4, which had to be pulled and repaired. We'll have an update in just a minute. Semi-quantitative risk assessment, also updated the committee on the risk assessment effort undergoing by the United States Army Corps of Engineers in New Orleans, and also discussed the need for future project prioritization. We discussed that after January, when all the new committees would be decided, that we'd have a meeting of the projects committee to discuss the highest priority projects and reaches for planning out the next few years of potential funding. And also discussed the upcoming, which will be on our agenda a little later, proposal from Delta Coast Consultants about the data gauges from the capital outlay system. So those are the minutes of the executive committee.
Anyone from the audience or back to you, Nick, to the executive audience.
All right, first up, pump station number 2 at pump number 2, at pump station number 4. At the end of October, we noticed some issues with operation at pump number 2. We pulled the pump on October 29th. You can see here being pulled through the roof with a crane. Bolin Marine then stripped it down to assess the damage to give us a quote for the repair. That quote ended up just coming back today at $216,335. You have that quote. You should have that quote in your packets, with an estimated time of 5 to 6 months to get it repaired and reinstalled. So that should put us right on track to have it back for hurricane season. Part of that proposal will include creating a template for a new Cascade suction bowl to be stored at Bolin's shop in New Orleans for future repairs, because multiple pumps at pump station number 4 as well as pump station number 7 would all use that same mold in the future. So it'd be creating this one mold for future use later. So that'd be part of this packet. The alternative would be purchasing a new pump. Reached out to Pisciola and Associates for recent quotes, and it looks like it'd be around $500,000 plus a 10 to 11 month lead time, which would put us without one pump short all through hurricane season. So I would recommend that instead of purchasing a new pump, that the board approve the cost of the repair at $216,335, since it's above my and the president's authorization to do so.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of our general manager to get the pump repaired. by Boland at a cost of $216,335. Moved by Mitch, second by Brett, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed.
All right, next up, the semi-quantitative risk assessment. So this is part of the recertification efforts that the Corps is doing to get us back into their rehabilitation and inspection program. A team of risk analysts from the Corps of Engineers met in New Orleans from October 16th through the 23rd. This is the same team that had previously come to inspect our system in person at the end of August. So this was the next step of that process. They worked through over 30 different ways that our levees could possibly fail over that week time. That included obviously overtopping, which would be thought to be the most common. What would happen if every one of our pumps would simultaneously fail? What would happen if we'd have a barge hitting the levee? What kind of damage would that do, and would we fail in that storm? Even to, what if we had an earthquake in South Louisiana? What would that do to our levee system? And specific anomalies to our system, like the new elevated highway going across our levee to Levee. What would happen if that bridge would collapse and fall on our levee? Now that would be, not only would that bridge have to fall on our levee, but it would also have to fall in a short enough time before a 100-year storm that we wouldn't be able to repair or put any kind of emergency protection in place. So it was a very thorough assessment of, like I said, over 30 different possible ways that the levee could fail. And what I appreciated about this was that it wasn't just a, here's our spreadsheet of how everything's going to fit in. We look at your elevations and how you built, and we have the computer spit out a number. This was all very openly discussed with these experts, that this is what they do. They travel around the country assessing risks of levees, looking at how levees have failed, and to be able to come to a system like ours and say, what's the likelihood of this happening? So we looked at potential failure methods for a 100-year storm, 500-year storm, and a 1,000-year storm for each of these instances. So for definitions, a 100-year storm is a storm that has a 1% chance of happening in a given year. A 500-year storm has a 0.2% chance of happening every year. So 500 years is stronger than Ida. Ida was about a 300-year, we're estimating. 1,000-year storm has a 0.1% chance of occurring in a given year. So extremely, extremely rare. But it looks like for us, a 100-year storm is maybe about 9 feet of water coming in. So over that would be over a 100-year storm. But the team will give us a final report of their assessment in the spring, and that'll include these kinds of numbers. But one example is a screenshot that I have up here. So this is the first one that we discussed. So this was a 100-year storm with 9 feet of water coming at our levee, assuming waves crashing over. So you have 9 feet of still water, but with the wave run up, you'd have waves crashing over the top of the levee and running off the back on the protected side. So looking here, the way they assessed this was you had 5 different nodes of what could happen within this failure method. So the first node would be intervention in this case. Basically, are we going to run out before the storm and put some kind of hard protection in front of our levees? The answer is no, and so that ended up having a 100%. All this are percentages. So because this isn't going to happen, there's a 100% chance that intervention is going to fail because we're not going to do intervention, right? Node 2 is slope protection failure. And slope protection, for the most part, for us would be grass. What kind of material do we have on the back side of our levees? So this would be when the waves overtop the levee, will it wash out the grass on the protected side? Potentially, depending on the health of the grass, yes, no. So through discussion, they decided it's basically a coin flip. So 50% chance that waves crashing over the back would start to erode grass away. Node 3 is after the grass is washed out, what's the likelihood that those waves would start to develop crevasses in the backside of the levee and little valleys that it would start to erode. We had just seen this on E North, and we pulled up for Ida, and so we pulled up pictures of what happened after Hurricane Ida, and that's what we use at the basis of discussion, because here we had the real world example that we were able to see overtopping and waves crashing over, and what happened there. So there was no grass cover on the south side of the levee that runs on the south side of Cloverleaf Farms, because we had just completed some work on that section the summer before Ida hit. And so they decided that this would be a high probability. If there was no grass, right, which was our case there, what's the probability that we'd start to have these cuts forming? And we did see some cuts that had formed in that area. Now this was the absolute worst case scenario, because this wasn't just no grass, this was brand new fresh dirt that hadn't really compacted and consolidated like most of our levee is. So even here, they decided maybe a 90% probability that we'd start to see this. The next would be continuation. So once these crevasses start to form, is there any sort of hard structure inside the levee that would be kind of a stopping point? That would say, all right, you're gonna start to erode, but then you're gonna have a wall or rock or concrete that is gonna stop that erosion from happening further. With the exception of a couple different spots, for the majority of our levee, we don't have any kind of wall or armoring throughout our levee. So the fact that it would continue is given 100% chance, because we don't have any structures. And then node 5, it would be a breach. So this assessment is linear. So it assumes that all the previous nodes have failed. So assuming we haven't put any kind of armoring right before the storm, assuming the grass has totally eroded away, assuming that these crevasses have started to form on the backside, and we don't have any hard structure embedded in the levee to stop erosion, what's the possibility that these situations continuing would lead to a breach in the system? Now this is looking at a 100-year storm coming at our levee for about 8 hours with waves overtopping it. So in this situation, they gave it about an average of a 1% chance of breaching. Because we saw it, right? We saw in Ida continual overtopping with waves for several hours, and we had this erosion, but we had no breaching. So for a 100-year storm, they're saying, a 0.1 or 1% chance of it actually causing a breach, which is extremely good for our system. So overall, they take all this into account and put it in their formula. And for a 100-year storm, it shows that we have a 0.045% chance of our levee failing for a 100-year level storm. So that's basically, it's not going to fail for a 100-year level. Now we looked at 500-year level, went through this entire scenario again, which would be 2 feet of water constantly coming over our system. 1 foot. The 1,000 years, 2 feet coming over our system, constantly, just solid 1 or 2 feet over 8-hour period. What would that do in all these scenarios? So for a 1 foot coming over our levee for 8 hours, they still said it ended up being about a 50%. Basically, flip a coin. We might fail, might not. Which, when you consider a foot of water coming over the levee for 8 hours, and the Corps of Engineers is saying basically a coin flip, you might survive. I mean, that's pretty good. And then for the 1,000-year storm, that's a constant 2 feet. That was up by 99%. That 2 feet of water constantly coming over our system for 8 hours would probably result in a failure. So that's to be expected, I think. So overall, I think we fared very well through this discussion. Now there's several more steps to happen before this is complete. The next step is that we're actually going to be meeting back Wednesday in New Orleans at the Corps of Engineers to discuss some other issues that have come up since our workshop, since they've started putting this information into their simulator. So they take this information, go back and throw it into a simulator that simulates thousands of different storms, of different strengths, different paths, different speeds that it's going, to then put out an assessed level of risk. After this meeting in Wednesday, we'll meet again in January or February, depending on their schedule, how it works out. to discuss the outcomes of those simulations, how it plays into with levee safety and life safety. So one of the things they're doing right now is saying, based on these failures, these potential failures, and knowing, they had a discussion with the parish Office of Emergency Preparedness, knowing about how many people tend to evacuate in these situations. If you do have a breach or a failure, how many lives can we expect to be lost in these situations? So they're doing those simulations right now, but then January, February, we'll meet again to discuss the outcomes of all this, and that'll be put into a report that they'll send up the chain for approvals before finally coming back to us sometime in late spring, hopefully before hurricane season. We'll have this all finished, where someone from the Corps of Engineers will come to a board meeting and explain to us, you know, basically what I just said, that how this was conducted and what the results would be. Now, what I did learn through all this that hadn't been told to us before is that the results of this effort are going to inform the National Flood Insurance Program. And so it's going to let NFIP and FEMA know how strong our system is based on this assessment. I have reached out to FEMA to see if they can give us any kind of indication of what that might do to our flood insurance rates, but it's been crickets, which is understandable, which is why we're suing them, right? For the risk rating 2.0. And ultimately, you know, we'll see in the future, does it benefit us to try to stay an authorized federal project? Since if we get no benefits from the NFIP, if the Corps of Engineers, if we're beyond what the Corps of Engineers is willing to pay for improvements because we've built beyond what we're authorized to, so if we're never getting any money from them for construction or improvement, and we're still being required to get Section 408 permits, if we want to put a shovel full of dirt on the levee, then is it really worth it to be a federal project? And in an upcoming WRDA bill, we may want to seek being deauthorized to where when we want to go improve our levee, we would just do it. And, you know, how we see fit and how we know it's going to make our situation better. So we're not there yet. We don't know what that outcome is going to be and what that recommendation should be for our residents. So we'll see hopefully by next hurricane season, before next hurricane season, what this will all mean for us going forward. So, does anybody have any questions about that whole process before we move forward? I know there's a lot of words, but
Thank you.
Take your break. Take your break.
Thank you.
all right. So next, recent rainfall and high water. So around October 30th, we started to see water getting higher in the Intracoastal with Raphael in the Gulf, and I know we saw Grand Isle had a lot of water in the area around that time. Even though it was going towards southern Mexico, we saw this earlier in June with the system that was heading towards Mexico, and we saw high water. So the water stayed high, kept climbing. Eventually we had to shut the screw gate on the culvert at the Delta Farm wall, which just caused the Delta Farm Road to flood sooner. And that eventually led to a 1.5 to 2 foot differential between the Intracoastal and the bayou south of the Ted Gisclair floodgate in La Rose. And so with that, we ended up having to go down to 1 opening per day, siphoning at pump station number 4 the rest of the day to keep water levels down. And we do have a video that our operations manager, Drake, took at the La Rose floodgate showing the water coming through. And this was one vessel trying to get through against that 1.5 to 2 foot differential.
That's 2 feet differential? 2.5?
Somewhere between 1.5 and 2 feet difference, yeah.
Kicking.
And then eventually, as the tug itself started getting closer, you see the tug's almost at a standstill.
Oh, yeah. Really moving.
Did these guys have to try again in the morning, or these guys had to try again in the morning? Or? Yeah. So here, the vessel couldn't get out. We got on the radio and advised them, look, just
Back off.
reverse. We'll try again in the morning. If the water levels are better, we open up. And so this is the kind of situation that proves how much we need the lock. I mean, we're seeing this more and more often, that we're having this huge differential, and because we can't flood our community, it's impeding commerce in our area. So
He couldn't get out on his own today, they had to get a boat to push him out.
One behind, pushing him, the next day.
So I have communicated to CPRA that this is going to be our highest priority for the upcoming year. We already have $5 million set aside for the lock. The state has $5 million in surplus funding set aside for the lock. The parish is still looking to get $15 million from the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program through FEMA. So as long as that comes in, we're still about 15 million short for the high end estimate of getting this constructed. So seeing the amount of money that we've gotten from CPRA over previous years, it's not out of the realm of possibility to see that if we would decide to focus on just this as a priority, that this could potentially go to bid next year. So I'll keep you guys updated as more information comes in on that.
That's your
And then
comment.
we had to decide to not open it for the day, right?
Right, so we're going down to one opening or no openings, because if we can't handle that amount of water coming in over a 24-hour period before we start potentially flooding the town of Golden Meadow, we have to keep the gate closed. So for the most part, our captains are very understanding and very cooperative. So I mean, we have communication with the navigation industry throughout all this. So they're aware of what's going on, why we have to keep it closed. So nobody wants to do it, but that's what we have to do for right now.
Get us some more money, Doug. Get some money. Tell that guy,
This will
take
be a
me
good
more.
opportunity.
Sure.
We had a good time.
I mean, for commerce, you know, you can ask a couple of other people in the area to try to help to get some more money from them.
So the last item on my report is we did receive $400,000 from the state through capital outlay this year to install water monitoring stations at all of our pump stations and our 2 gates. Delta Coast Consultants had put together that package for us to submit to the state for capital outlay because they put together the system for Terrebonne Levee District. And so I asked them to put together a proposal for them to coordinate us, designing a system, procuring all the materials and having it installed. And so that proposal's in your packet. It comes out, it would be a time and materials contract not to exceed $132,500. I looked over it. I think for everything that's being included, it's reasonable. And again, it's time and material, so we only pay for what is actually being done. So I recommend that you guys approve that contract and authorize me or Keith to sign.
All right, you got a recommendation on Joe Amendment. Move on back, second on mine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's cheap.
And that completes my report.
Any questions to Nick? All right, moving on, anyone for CPRA here? Or engineer? Project engineer, Pisciola and Associates, Mark.
Mark Piciola and Associates. First project is the LaRose Lock. Project plans and specifications are 95% complete. All permitting is complete, and we are now working on hydraulic modeling of the area for the submittal to FEMA and preparing the final plans and specifications for issue for bid set. The next project is Section E North levee improvements, southeast corner to northeast corner. Construction Site Specialties is the contractor. The notice to proceed was issued on June 19, 2023. The contractor is currently on site moving material. They made a lot of progress last month, and they continue to make progress as long as the weather permits. We have Construction Site Specialties has submitted pay application number 10 in the amount of $592,422.61 for your approval.
Okay, gentlemen, we've heard the recommendation of our engineer, take a construction site specialties, pay application number 10, amount of $592,422.61. Moved by Brett, second by Mr. Rowland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Campo and Sons is also on site. They're grading and shaping material that's been placed on the berm into the levee template. and they have submitted pay application number 1 in the amount of $28,192.50, and we recommend approval.
Okay, you heard the recommendation of engineer to pay Coco the sum of $28,192.50. Moved by Mitch, second by Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
The next project is Section A East levee improvements. Project plans and specifications are complete. They have been submitted to CPRA and they have approved them. We have also submitted those to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for Section 408 permit review, and we're currently working on scheduling a meeting with them to discuss the 408 permit.
Oh, we got a permit.
The next project is repairs to the timber fender at the LaRose floodgate. Project plans are complete. Crosby has ordered the material and is expected to move on site in the upcoming weeks. And the final project is the emergency gate closure at the LaRose floodgate. Project plans are complete. We are currently soliciting bids from several contractors and will receive them on November 21st at 10 a.m. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark. Okay, moving on, GIS.
Listen to too much money, John.
That's what I'm saying.
John got the big money, I don't know about him.
Good afternoon, Kevin Desarm with GIS Engineering. Update you on our projects today. So first off, we have the A East by Lafourche freshwater retention pond. So as previously reported, that project is fully designed, done, ready to go. The only thing we're waiting on is some landowner coordinations. From updates from Ryan, he's reached out to most of the landowners. I think he has 1 or 2 left to really make contact with, but that should be done by the end of the year, we're thinking.
No more vacation.
Next one is the D North ramp lift. So on this one, we broke this up into 2 projects. So we are requesting authorization to advertise the ramp lift. And then we have a change order from material stockpile, but first off, let's address the advertising for the ramp lift.
Approval to authorize you to heard the recommendation on the engineer, ready to go off the bid. Moved by Scott, second by Brett, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you. And that will bring that section up to a +18 is the intent of that project. Secondly is the material stockpile, which was completed. We did the substantial completion. We did have a balancing change order for $72,185.40. This was an overdredge of material, but it was a good thing because it allowed us to go to 18 on the lift. So we are going to utilize that.
Who is that payment to? That's,
Out of limits, yes.
Out of limits. Matt Moore.
all right, you've heard the recommendation of the engineer for the balance change order, amount of $72,185.40. Moved by Matt, second by Scott, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you. And then we'll have 2 more pay apps to approve for that project, and it'll be done. This amount we just balanced, and then the final retainage. It will be all complete. Next project is the Brenton Canal. So that project, we have, the contractor is working. They're getting very close to having the structure in place. They should have the concrete poured. As you can see, all the sheet piles are in place. They should have everything on site minus the actual gates and the electrical work done by the end of this month. And then they're going to partially demobilize from the site because the gates aren't anticipated to be in until end of January, early February of next year. But once they do get those gates in place, they anticipate 2 weeks and they'll have them done.
And that'll be the final step?
Yes, sir. So most likely what our intent is they're going to request a partial substantial completion for the site work, and we'll do a inspection sometime in early December, and then we'll wait until the gates are installed and do the full final acceptance of the project. And we did have a pay app for this contractor for Garden Environments in the amount of $24,907.58, and we have reviewed that and do recommend that.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of engineer to pay Gordon Environmental, $24,907.58. Moved by Scott, second by Gavin, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the last project is the D-South flood wall at the Crawfish Farm. So this is the Phase 3 improvements. We had the pre-construction meeting with the contractor, which is Sea Level Construction. We had that last week. They are going to start procuring materials and getting everything ready, but they don't plan to actually mobilize out there until the new year, sometime early January. But that's all built into their schedule, and that should fall within their contract time. So there's no issue with that.
Any
Any
questions?
questions? All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right.
Thank you.
And you let the line.
All right, on the C North Levee area, we've got a couple of things going on there. The contractor working on the emergency repair was Compo and Sons. He completed that work last month. That's where the levee meets Highway 3235 along Highway 24. We're recommending approval of his invoice number 1321 in the amount of $14,068.19 for that work.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of engineer, pay invoice 1321 to Compo and Sons. Moved by Bonnie, second by Mitch, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, also on C North, the contractor, Compo and Sons, is finalizing some stockpile reshaping to dress off a small segment of that levee section. This is just a partial invoice for the work he's working on, but invoice number 1334 in the amount of $2,205, we're recommending payment.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of engineer, pay invoice 1334, amount of $2,205. Moved by Matt, second by Mitch, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, moving on to section C South. Again, we have Compo and Sons working on the project to improve that protected side slope. We're recommending approval of his invoice number 1336 in the amount of $22,532.50 for this work.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of engineer, pay invoice 1336, amount of $22,532.50 to Compo and Sons. Moved by Mitch, second by Gavin, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
All right, we also have same contractor, Compo and Sons, doing some reshaping on an area behind the shooting range. His invoice number 1337 in the amount of $4,235 is being submitted. We recommend approval.
Okay, recommendation of engineer, pay Compo and Sons, invoice 1339.
37.
37, I'm sorry. Moved by Brett, second by Mr. Rowland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, and last on that section, work is being completed for the flood side toe repairs. You can see some of that on the left side of the picture here. Compo and Sons was the contractor. His invoice number 1339 in the amount of $76,702.50, and we recommend payment.
Okay, the recommendation of engineer to pay Compo and Sons invoice 1339, $76,702.50. Moved by Mitch, second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. Moving south of this area on the B North levee segment, this is south of the Basin Pump Station. We have a contract, New Gym Construction LLC, working on the protected side berm, doing improvements there. We recommend approval of his invoice number 1041 in the amount of $33,735.
Who's the contract?
That's Nick Walker.
What is his company? Okay.
Yeah, that's his company name.
New gym?
The recommendation of engineer to pay Nick Walker Construction, invoice 1041, in the amount of $33,735. Moved by Monty, second by Mitch, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
It's just some reshaping?
It's some maintenance work, yeah, some levee.
It's
levee
material we
maintenance.
had stockpiled previously that internally our guys had pulled up from the canal. And now that's one of our sections of levee that's the steepest. And so we're looking to just slope it out a little bit.
Okay.
Trying to get it back to grade, just some areas that had different settlement subsidence and reshaping it so it can be maintained better.
Thank you.
We're looking at the materials, a lot of material, extra material for future use right there, right?
There is, yeah, yeah. And we're gonna need it.
Yeah.
Especially along this section.
The last section is section F. This is on the northeast side, behind Delta Farm. That contractor is Sea Level Construction. They have completed all the work on the project to improve the protected side berm. We have a couple of items today for your consideration. The first one is approval of substantial completion as of October 4th, 2024. Yes, sir.
Recommendation from our engineer to accept the certificate of substantial completion. Moved by Matt, seconded by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, next item on that same levy section, same contract, is change order number 3. This is a deduct change order, and also some weather days. We have a deduct of 5,919 cubic yards at the contract price of $20.20 a yard, for a total deduct of $119,563.80, and also 42 weather days that we're recommending for the project. We do recommend approval of that change order number 3. So this is money coming back to the district that, or that we thought we'd have to spend that we don't have to spend.
All right, the recommendation engineer to accept the balance and change order, number 3. Moved by Gavin, seconded by Mitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then last on this project, we have sea level application for payment number 13 for the section F in the amount of $31,893.78.
Okay, for the recommendation of our engineer, pay application 13, amount of $31,893.78 to sea level. Moved by Matt, seconded by Mr. Rowland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
All right, and then the only thing we'll have left on this project is probably in the January meeting, we'll have the clear lien certificate back from the clerk of court. They have one punch list item that they have to deal with, doing some cleanup at the entrance of the project. And then we'll have the retainage payment, which is just under $200,000 to pay the contractor.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, and that's all I have.
Any questions for Neil?
Thank you.
Delta Coast, from Delta Coast. Also,
Melanie Caillouette with All South Consulting Engineers. Our first project that we have is the Reach K Terraces. This was some damage that was done by Hurricane Barry. The terraces are now complete. We completed them right after Hurricane Francine. And so at this point, it's just paperwork that's outstanding. The Terrebonne Levee District has to send invoices. Y'all pay them and then send it over to FEMA. It's a whole big old fluffle. On Reach K Levee South, this is south of the first water control structure, that is completed to a +11. And there's no additional work going on in that area, with the exception of continuing maintenance on the Hall Road, because we are using that Hall Road to get to the Reach K Center section, which is what's pictured here. So the center section is between the two water control structures. The north water control structure is right around station 208. And right now we have gotten all the way down to station 180 to a +11. As you work your way south, we have most areas at or close to a +9, and that was something that we did in preparation for Hurricane Francine. And we're going to continue working from the north going south, bringing it up to a +11. So we're still working on that right now. This is a section that is difficult to work in because it was not a very compacted area. And so as soon as we put material on it and started running trucks on it and working it, it just sinks and goes away. So it's a constant battle trying to gain elevation in that area, but so Terrebonne Levee District is constantly adding more material to our contract, and we're just going to keep putting more material until we get to that plus 11. And that's all I have on my status report.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, legal permits applied to way, Mitch.
No permits this month.
Oh, cool.
Holiday time.
Mr. Board Attorney,
Just
no?
quick.
All right, Finance Committee, Mike.
Okay, Mr. President, the Finance Committee met at the first meeting, reviewed all invoices, and recommended be paid as presented.
Good recommendation from our finance chair, to pay all our invoices. Moved by Mike, second by Scott, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Personnel Committee.
Okay, Mr. President, there's, in the packet, everybody received a copy of the revision to personnel manual. Specifies how the annual cost of living increase will be paid. Basically, a 2% cost of living will be granted every year, and the rest of it will be based on the employee performances. So hopefully develop a culture where employees get rewarded for a job well done. So the committee recommends the board accept the additional wording. And like I said, if you have any questions, this looks like this in your packet. Okay? So we're looking for our board acceptance.
Okay, you got a recommendation on personnel chair to accept the new revised evaluations. Moved by Gavin, second by Mitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Also, the committee reviewed applications for mobile equipment operator #1 position, and we'll be notifying applicants tomorrow.
You skipped that.
Which one?
Employee performance evaluations, approval of referendums.
Oh, yeah, no, I had it last quarter. I reversed it. It's coming next, okay. Yeah, so the next thing, the committee review employee personnel evaluation every year. So at this meeting is granted for the year 2025 upcoming, so that we could committee look at and come with our recommendations to the board. So we need board approval to recommend that, approve that in 2025.
Okay, you heard the recommendation about personnel chair. Moved by Brett, second by Mitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
For sure, Mr. President.
Okay, any old business? Any old business? Any new business? Any need for executive? Make any motion to adjourn? Moved by Brett, second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Don't look like it's raining yet either.